Hello and welcome to the 181st edition of the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. In Nashville, Tennessee, I'm the professor, Matt Perkins. And a slant and go across the Harpeth River from me here in the Music City, it's our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton.
What's up, guys? I want to apologize for almost dying last episode. You probably were hearing me shivering the whole episode. So good news is I'm not cold, so I won't be shivering. And we got a lot to talk about. Black Monday, the dogs, and then, everybody else.
All right. Well, we can't get started without the third amigo in the second city, a man who enjoys a good snow day. It's our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook.
We did have a snow day up here in Chicago. That was nice. They announced it at about 10 o'clock last night, so I got to sleep in and not have to worry about checking my email in the morning.
That is a great way to start a day. Well, a lot of coaches who are going to be getting a day off here, maybe multiple days off. It is Black Monday, as Coach alluded to. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we get to that, let's just get through a round of quick slants. Josh, I'll throw it out to you first.
Yeah, I had three teams that two for sure didn't make a bowl game, and I'm not sure the third one will either. But they did have promising seasons. The first was the 5-7 SMU Mustangs. They started out 0-3. They looked dreadful for a while, but they actually controlled their own destiny there for a little bit in the division. A very good debut season for Sonny Dykes. He did coach the bowl game. This was his debut first full season, but a really nice debut full season for Sonny Dykes as he tries to build the ponies back up. The Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, I know they lost their Final Four, and that stings. But they did go 5-7, a marked improvement as they got their head coach Joe Moglia back from illness. He missed all of last year. That's an encouraging sign for the Chanticleers. And the Louisiana Monroe Warhawks, they did finish 6-6. I'm not sure there's enough bowl games, even for a 6-6 Sun Belt team, to sneak into one, but they controlled their own destiny there for a while also, and that was an improved season, and it was Matt Viator's best season on the Monroe campus, so maybe signs of life for three programs. That's always exciting.
Yeah, Coach, speaking of exciting, your dogs took down Georgia Tech in clean old-fashioned hate fashion this weekend. Cleanest thing on the field was Jake Fromm's jersey. I don't think he got touched.
No, he didn't. And he was 13 of 16 for 175 and 4 touchdowns. Made tremendous throws all day long. I think a pair of them went to Riley Ridley. There was one to Jeremiah Holloman that looked like an NFL throw. Of course, DeAndre Swift and Elijah Holyfield, they showed out again. The defense held Georgia Tech's offense to, I think, 68 first-half yards, and I think they held them under 200 for the entire game. Georgia Tech made a late rally to make the score look a lot better than it actually was. Georgia pretty much took their foot off the gas pretty much right after halftime. It was 45-7 at that point. And so Georgia Tech just kind of fought and scratched and clawed their way against Georgia's reserves and made a game out of it. But, it was just total domination. There's a million good things I could say. So I'll just leave it at, we're getting ready for Bama, and this will be a game that I look forward to previewing later on this week.
Yeah, Coach, you were texting me feeling pretty good about your chances against Bama, but obviously we will talk about that later in the week when we get to previewing all the conference championship games. My quick slant is just a very fast recap of what happened in the FCS playoffs this past weekend.
Playoffs?
I'm just trying to win a game.
Kidding me? Playoffs?
All right. It was the first round. Obviously, our top 8 seeds got buys in the first round. So I'm just going to go down the bracket really quick. Montana State beat Incarnate Word 35-14. They are the sacrificial lamb to North Dakota State next week. James Madison was in the playoff game this year. They dispatched with Delaware pretty easily, 20-6. They will take on that Colgate defense, that's going to be a good matchup between great offense and great defense. Duquesne had the biggest upset of the weekend. They took down Towson, who was ranked 19th. Duquesne unranked coming into this one, and they won handily, really slowing down Towson's offense. They'll play South Dakota State next week. Wofford beat Elon 19-7. Obviously, that is not the first time that they met this season. Nicholls State beat San Diego in the highest scoring matchup of the weekend, 49-30. Obviously, San Diego was a team, Josh, that you were interested in to see how they competed because they are a non-scholarship school. I thought they did, pretty well for themselves, all things considered. But,
yeah, I mean, they're a lovable program, just like Drake, just like Bradley, a few of the others that are in that exciting Pioneer Football Conference.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Josh, your home state, Northern Iowa, they took down Lamar, and they will get to take on UC Davis, team that I picked to go pretty far. You did not believe in them as much. You think that the Panthers are going to go out to the great, I don't know if Davis is still considered Central Valley, Northern Valley of California.
I don't know.
Beautiful area of the country, nonetheless.
I mean, the Panthers. Look, the Panthers were such a feast and famine team this year. When it was all clicking for them, they were capable of really good things, like when they beat the Jackrabbits. But man, it seemed like there were stretches where nothing went right for them.
Yeah, definitely.
So they had the potential to give you fits, but we will see if they can even string it together.
Elsewhere, Jacksonville State beat ETSU 34-27 in a close one. They will get to head up to Orono to play Maine next weekend. Yeah. And finally, Southeast Missouri State took down Stony Brook. That was a case of a lower seed or a lower ranked team, I should say, beating a higher ranked one in pretty convincing fashion, 28-14. They get to take on the number 2 seed Weber State next week. What do you think about Bob Stoops becoming the head coach at Auburn?
But he denied it.
Yeah, but he's going to deny it, of course. Yeah. That's what he has to do.
Certainly interested. I mean, he just retired, and I don't know, that certainly adds controversy to why in the world did he leave Oklahoma then?
His team is better since he retired. Right?
Not necessarily defensively.
Wow.
Well, yeah.
I mean, think about it. Lincoln Riley's been the head coach there for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
In that 2 years, he got the team. He got the team to a playoff, and has them poised to get to the playoff again if he gets 1 or 2 breaks this weekend.
Stoops got them to a playoff.
I think they need
won a national title.
If they beat the shit out of Texas.
No, he won a title in 2000?
2000.
Won a title. Took them to multiple BCS games.
What year did they make the playoff?
Who?
The first year of the playoffs.
The first year of the playoffs? When Ohio State won?
Yeah.
No, because it was Auburn. No, it was Oregon, Florida State, and Bama, Ohio State that year.
Who was in the second year of the playoffs?
They got blown out.
I'm looking up right now.
They got blown out by Clemson.
Okay, the first year. You're right. It was the year that there was the 2015-2016 Oklahoma team lost to Clemson. So you're right.
Yeah,
they got their shit.
Okay. So he made it in his last season.
They made the play.
So he made it his second to last season.
Yeah, so they made the playoffs just as much as Lincoln Riley's been there.
Bob Stoops owns the Big 12.
Okay. I'm just saying that, I think the program today just feels a little bit stronger to me. Maybe that's because I like Lincoln Riley as a coach. Coach has worn Coach, you've worn me down. I'm pretty on board the the Riley bandwagon, even though his defense is suspect, shall we say.
Well,
Matt, Bob Stoops coached from 1999 to 2016. They made a they made a bowl game every year. They were ranked every year but 1, 2, 3 in the final polls. They were in the top 10 every year of that run outside of 4 times. They won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 conference titles and played in another they won the division one year that they didn't win the overall conference.
Yeah, they're the Kansas basketball of that.
He coached them in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 BCS or playoff games. And of that, they won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. If Lincoln Riley does this for 20 years, he can let me know that he's as good as Bob Stoops. Bob Stoops is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Lincoln Riley's had 2 nice years. He hasn't built the program. He hasn't made the program stronger. He's just maintained what Bob Stoops built. And I think other people sometimes forget what Oklahoma was before Bob Stoops got there. The coach before him, John Blake, 3-8, 4-8, 5-6. This program was on probation for a little bit. And they struggled. Before that, John Blake guy who was there, Howard Schnellenberger for 1 year. He was there just for 1 year in that really weird thing. And he went 5-5-1 and then peaced out. The 90s were bad. 90s were bad for Oklahoma. Gary Gibbs.
Yeah, in the 90s, Nebraska ran the Big 12.
Yeah, Gary Gibbs.
With a hint of Colorado.
Yeah, Gary Gibbs went 44-23-2 overall, but just 26-14-2 in conference.
Mm-hmm.
And never finished better. I guess he had 1 tied for second place, but I was going to say he never finished better than third in the conference.
All right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think people are quick to dismiss Bob Stoops and they like to mock.
Maybe it's more that we're quick to forget.
Yeah. Yeah, people will do like the big game.
I wouldn't say I'm trying to dismiss him. I just feel like for moving forward, I would worry about Stoops' age and burnout and things like that. Now, maybe the year off has recharged his batteries, if you want to use that cliche. But this is the same thing I'm going to say about Mack Brown, that I don't know if hiring these older coaches is necessarily the way to go, because they're just trying to sort of recapture glory. And I don't know if that's necessarily always the best thing for either them or the university.
Well, Mack Brown's been out of the game for 5 years and is 66. Bob Stoops was out of the game for 1 year. He got his head coaching job at a rather young age. He's actually just 58.
Okay. So I'm going to keep my point on Mack Brown.
Oh, Mack Brown's a ridiculously dumb hire.
It is. Who coach in if you were the 88 North Carolina, who would you have gone for? Because I have a name that immediately popped into my head when Fedora got fired.
Cliff Kingsbury? I would have gone for Brent Venables, Cliff Kingsbury.
Brent's come out and said he's not taking a job.
I know, but I would
because of his son. Well,
when they fired Fedora, he hadn't said that yet. So
yeah, he hadn't said that yet. But the second his name popped up, I feel like
Satterfield.
That's the name I thought of.
I feel like he's an App State lifer. Played there,
but
played their coach there.
Same state. This guy, he's just a proven winner, especially if he brings his defensive coordinator with him. I feel like in the ACC, you can get you're not going to get to Clemson, but you can get to the level of being the let's say, second or third best team of the conference pretty quickly there.
Yeah.
I mean, because I just feel I feel like North Carolina has always been very sloppy, and that is the last thing you would ever say about an App State team.
Yeah. Here's why I don't like the Mack Brown hire, and it's just I think that his interest in the game kind of slipped. His recruiting numbers slipped. We saw how tough it's been to build Texas back up. His last 4 years there, 5-7, 8-5, 9-4, 8-5. Just one time ranked in the last 4 years. Maybe he was burned out at Texas, but yeah, I think he's just had a life of football, and it's a stressful life, and he looks way older than 66. I think that's because it's kind of like in terms of stress level and what it does to you. Look at pictures of Obama on the day he was elected versus when he left office.
Oh, it's night and day.
Yeah,
he aged 20 years in the span of 8.
Yeah, it's similar stress in that it's long work days. It's staying on the recruiting trail. It's breaking down film. And the coaches that do it for a really, really, really long time let something slip. And maybe it's they have less hands-on control. Now it's kind of Joe Paterno system, and we saw what that did. Maybe it's you just can't recruit anymore, and you just kind of tune things out. And we've sort of seen Hayden Fry and Bill Snyder do a little bit of the same thing towards their end of their careers. Maybe it's you turn things over to family members. Well, that's great if that second generation family member is a good coach, but there's no guarantee. And so what's Mack Brown exactly bringing to North Carolina? I think what North Carolina is doing ranks up there with Rutgers and Illinois keeping their coaches and USC keeping their coaches. I mean, those three programs, what the hell are they thinking?
Coach, I also think it's a weird situation having him return to North Carolina after he had his greatest success as a coach elsewhere. And so, the last coach we saw this, albeit under very different circumstances, was Bobby Petrino, and he was summarily fired this past week. So what sort of baggage, Coach, do you think that going back to somewhere you've been before brings with it? Or does it because he's been away for so long?
Well, he's been away for quite some time now. And I think he was truly happy, and he was doing a great job at North Carolina before he left for Texas. And I think it's different from the Petrino situation because Petrino is a scumbag that likes to ride motorcycles with co-eds. But, Mack Brown just, he was still young and hungry or fairly hungry, relatively, I guess. So I don't know, man. It'll be weird because he's been out of college coaching for 5 years, and you could tell he was visibly burnt out towards the tail end of Texas. Now, the University of Texas having that job will take its toll on you. That's the coaching equivalent of being the president of the United States of America. The pressure that comes with the University of Texas is tremendous. Now, he's revered at UNC, so it'll be a little bit different for him.
Well, I mean, he was their most successful coach for a long time. I mean, his career at North Carolina, he was 69-46-1, 40-35-1, and that's after you factor in his first 2 years. They went 1-10, 1-10. So once you subtract those out, he's 67-26-1.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
It's really outstanding. He had 8 consecutive winning seasons, 6 consecutive bowl games.
Yeah, it's
3 10-win seasons. I mean, you're right. It was in many ways, what he accomplished at North Carolina is, I'm not going to say it's better than what he did at Texas. He won a national title and that was a transcendent team that played in, even though I don't really root for either of these schools, one of the greatest national title games ever played.
Yeah.
One of the greatest college football games ever played, period. And that was sort of a moment of bliss in what was otherwise a relatively rocky, whatever it was, 15, 16 seasons in Austin, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, his run at Texas, full of division championships, which AKA means that they were tied record-wise with Oklahoma, but didn't get to play in the Big 12 title game.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means, because, you know, he wasn't losing Big 12 title games. He wasn't even making Big 12 title games. And, you know, he had a phenomenal career there, and he's one of Texas's best coaches. But like you said, it was kind of rocky in that maybe it was because he was from Tennessee and he was not a Texas man. Some schools are like that, like Michigan man. Maybe he just didn't mesh with the whole Texas vibe. But yeah, it was always kind of a contentious relationship, even when things were going well. There were times like, you know, where it just felt like you were waiting for the other shoe to drop. The other thing about his North Carolina run that is interesting, and I think just for the sake of our viewer or our listeners, because sometimes people forget all the conference changes and all that, but the ACC, very, very different conference when he was there. 1996, one of his best seasons there. In 1997, one of his other strongest win seasons. The ACC was a little bit different. So in 1997, for instance, Florida State won it, like they always did. Mm-hmm. North Carolina finished second. And then you had Georgia Tech managed to finish 25th in the country. Those were the only three ranked teams. You had Virginia make a bowl. You had Clemson win 7 games and make a bowl. NC State probably made a bowl. They were 6-5. Wake Forest 5-6. Maryland 1-7. Duke 0-8. The ACC had no Miami, no Virginia Tech. It was just a different conference. It was
no Louisville, no Syracuse,
it was at its peak basketball crazed. Don't give a crap about football outside of the team in Tallahassee. So he's entering a much different league now. And I think this is one of the things that I have a hard time reconciling with Mack Brown, because when I see the ACC, you got Clemson head and shoulders above everyone else. What are the teams that have found success? Well, Syracuse, crazy high up-tempo offense. Boston College and Pitt, physical teams that try and play really good defense, but they also just bruise you with running. The teams that have struggled, you're wondering what their identity is. So like Florida State, what's their identity? Louisville, what's their identity? Miami, what's their identity? I'm curious, what's the identity that Mack Brown's going to bring? Because I think this league is Clemson's just going to suck in the top of the recruiting class. You're going to get the best players in the conference. So you need to not necessarily say a gimmick, but you need to have something that you do that's different, that gives other people's fits. And Georgia Tech's kind of got that. But, like, what was his identity at Texas? It was just relying on having a great quarterback. Well, that's NC State's formula with Finley, and I haven't seen them win a conference title.
Yeah, but I also think one of the things that is going in his favor here, Coach, is that he's in the Coastal. Clemson and Florida State. I mean, Florida State's had a down season, but come on, it's Florida State. They will recruit with the best of them, and they will get the athletes. And even if it's not Taggart in 2 years, they'll have a different coach who is better if he's not winning. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast down there.
Yeah.
So, but in the Coastal, you've got to deal with Pitt, Tech, Virginia, Miami, Virginia Tech, and Duke. That is, it's not, I'm not going to say it's as bad as the Big Ten West at times, but maybe it is.
Yeah, let's not sugarcoat. That's the worst division in all of Division One.
So I mean, you have the best chance of getting to a conference title game as fast as possible.
Yeah, and it's all going to be who he hires on as his staff. What recruiters can he get in? Can he hire the right coordinators? Is he going to modernize what he does with the staff that he hires? That'll be important. It kind of worked for Herm Edwards. We all had our opinions on Herm Edwards, and he's pretty much shattered all of those. I would say, for what he brought to the table this year, I would go ahead and grade him almost as an A. But he made the right hires. He tuned in with the right people, and he got the right recruits, and it'll only get better for Herm. Same goes for Mack Brown, somebody that's been out of the game for 5 years. He's an older guy. Got to hire the right people. Got to hit the ground running recruiting. Got to get some guys in because it's a winnable division. You could win this division now, and you could start fast, and you could do it now. And he knows how to do it. He knows how to recruit in that area for that school. He knows how to get around the basketball school stigma there. He's done it before. He found some guy. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him. His name's Julius Peppers.
Yeah, he was okay.
He was all right. And so, you just gotta trust that he's been there before and he knows how to do it.
North Carolina's fertile recruiting ground. I mean, Coach, you know that as well as any of us do. There's a lot of really talented kids who come out of that area. Now, I don't know how many people he still knows in the sort of North Carolina high school football ranks, because
I'm sure
he knows some. I'm sure he knows some ADs for sure. Yeah. He's got contacts and he knows some people, but it's going to take a minute to get back in lockstep with that if he wants to. Which I think his best way to go is he's got to lock down the Tar Heel State. Mm-hmm. And if he can do that, then he can build a contender, I think, because there are enough, especially physical defensive linemen, which is what has proven to be what any contending team needs more than anything else is quality defensive linemen. And I think you've got enough kids with the size power combination coming out of that state and, the surrounding region, whether you're going up to, Tidewater area up in Virginia or down the coast a little bit to, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, there's enough of a talent base there that if he can recruit well, which there's no reason he shouldn't be able to do if he doesn't get the right people in place, he could turn that thing around real quick.
Oh yeah, he really could. And like we said, the pluses are he knows the fertile recruiting ground that he's taken on. It's a weak division, extremely weak division. He knows what he's doing. He's a tremendous coach. So, I mean, all things point to him having a great amount of success.
All right. Well, a couple of the other guys that got fired here on, Black Monday or within the last week, and maybe some things have been made known about them. I'm just going to go through them real quick with you guys. We'll stop and talk about them as we go. I'm just going in alphabetical order. We'll start. Bowling Green fired Mike Jinks. He was a lovely 7-24, 5-14 in conference. Josh, you have any thoughts on this one?
I mean, Bowling Green just has sent too many coaches off to bigger and better programs.
Yeah.
It's cyclical with programs like the MAC. A lot of good recruits in the state of Ohio. Once Bowling Green finds the right coach, there's no reason for them not to compete in the MAC again. Mike Jinks just wasn't the right coach for him.
I think you could say the same thing about John Bonamego at Central Michigan.
Did know it, yep.
Yeah,
absolutely. But, that's what happens when you go 1-11. You're going to get canned no matter how good you were before. Charlotte fired Brad Lambert, who had been, one of their only coaches in program history. After going,
I mean, he did a really good job of getting that program off the ground. They had some decent success in the FCS and kind of as they worked up the ranks, but it was just clearly not going to be working for them in a competitive Conference USA. And he put in a lot of legwork, but they're at the point where they need a guy who can get them over the hump.
Yeah,
they're in good recruiting ground, like you said, for Conference USA. They're like North Texas. There's no reason for Charlotte not to compete every year for that conference.
Definitely, I think he can get fired for looking too much like Pence. But Colorado, we talked about this a little bit. Mike McIntyre is gone.
Yeah.
The 2016 Pac-12 Coach of the Year World Year Award seems like it was a lifetime away. They started out 5-0 this year, then lost 6 in a row. I mean, Coach, Colorado has not really been able to find, the right mix for a sustained success now for a while.
No, I mean, they just can't stand prosperity. You can't, a 7-5 record or a 6-6 record looks a whole lot different when you start 5-0 and then you lose 5 in a row. And when you go on these long streaks, it's like, oh, we're really good. And then next thing you know, you start losing and losing and losing and losing and losing. So these streaks just seem like you're terrible as a program. And it gives off the feel that, well, he's not a very good coach, when in all actuality, he's doing a good job for what Colorado is. I just think you can't go on streaks like that. And he is unfortunate. He brought high expectations upon himself. He won Pac-12 Coach of the Year, 57 years ago, feels like. And, when you put those kind of expectations on you, you better produce. And he didn't produce. He never got over that hump to, going from good to great to elite. He never climbed that mountain. And so,
I think a lot of that had to do with Jim Leavitt leaving, because we talked about how important that defense was the year that they won that he won the award, they won the division. That defense was fantastic, and then the next 2 years it has just completely fallen off a cliff. Josh,
he made a bad hire.
Do you have any names in mind, or who you would like to see go there? The two guys that popped into my head were Matt Wells from Utah State and Chris Kleiman from North Dakota State. But I don't know if
they've already talked about that they want a coach with head coach experience. That was in their news when they said that they were firing him. And one name that they really liked was Tedford, but I don't see how they're prying him out of Fresno. I think they are going to be kind of left without a dance partner. I'm not sure who wants to necessarily go there 2 years after a Coach of the Year award wasn't enough. And the other thing is Colorado is just kind of the redheaded stepchild of the Pac-12.
It doesn't fit in.
They fit way better with the Big 12. They had that rivalry with Nebraska. They got a lot of kids with like chips on their shoulders to say, hey, you come here, you're going to play against the premier program, because they're squaring off with Nebraska every year, it seemed like. And they just don't have that in Pac-12, and I don't know if they ever will. It wouldn't surprise me if, say we're doing this podcast in 10, 15 years, if at some point Colorado either goes back to the Big 12 or is even an independent. Because I just don't see this marriage with the Pac-12 going over too well.
Yeah, I don't know how well it's gone over in other sports either. Continuing on down the list, we've talked about Kansas. They fired David Beatty. Les Miles is the new coach. I guess he likes the sod out there in Kansas. I mean, it should be some good grass. I mean, they grow lots of good corn out there, I suppose, but good growing conditions.
Mm-hmm.
But Louisville, we talked about Petrino, he gone, and Jeff Brom just came out, coach, and said that Purdue is the place he wants to be, or so it sounded like it. So do you take that as him saying that he's staying in West Lafayette?
Yeah, I do. I don't think it's a good fit for Jeff Brom to leave Purdue for Louisville. I think he's, stepping out of the frying pan into the fire. I think that's how the saying goes, right? Honestly, he's got a better situation at Purdue because he's already started building it, and he would have to pretty much knock all over his Legos and start over again. And his Legos, he wouldn't be guaranteed to find all of his Legos. That
he doesn't get to bring Rondale Moore with him.
I know, and so I think, and unless they just throw a crazy amount of money at him, so much that you can't turn down, I think it'd be smart of him to stay at Purdue. I think that's the right move for him, and I think Louisville's just they've got to figure something out. I don't know what they're going to do, because that's a job that I don't know that it's all that attractive. They're going to have to go mid-major. They're going to have to go coordinator. They're going to have to kind of start back at ground zero. I know they probably think of themselves as we're going to get a guy with head coaching experience already. Buyer beware on that, because you don't want to hire some stupid retread that ends up setting you back another 4 or 5 years, and the next thing you know, it just gets really bad for Louisville. So
what about Neil Brown, the Troy head coach? He's the name that would come to mind for me.
Yeah,
I feel like you're going to have to get a mid-major guy, and you're not going to get even Luke Fickell, who might be a good fit. Cincinnati, very close to the state of Kentucky. He, that would be able to go for Power 5. I don't know if I'm Fickell. I would not leave Cincinnati for Louisville.
I would hold out, because Fickell has enough success that he could be a replacement guy for one of these bigger, more successful Power 5 schools.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Luke Fickell, he might, I doubt they'll go after him, but I mean, he could be a guy for a program like Texas Tech, they're kind of on the verge. We'll get to them later, but Neil Brown, I like that. Scott Satterfield, I think, would be a name that if they could pry him away from App State, I think that would be somebody they could go after. Blake Anderson at Arkansas State.
Yeah.
I think
he would be an interesting fit there, because the offense that he runs is close enough to what Petrino was doing that I feel like it would mesh pretty seamlessly with the recruiting talent that they have on hand, the personnel that are there already.
Yes.
So absolutely. that would seem to be a good fit, but that is going to require Louisville to sort of swallow their pride a little bit.
Oh, and you didn't really. I didn't really get a chance to speak on Colorado. I heard there was some I don't know what level, when you hear things this time of year, everything's hearsay and nothing is on solid ground. So don't quote me as putting this on solid ground or in stone or whatever figure of speech you want to use.
I'll take it with a heap of salt.
Yes, take it with a
not just a single grain, but a
take it with a truckload of salt. That Derek Mason might head back out west to go to Colorado.
Interesting.
So that would leave, like, if I'm Vanderbilt and that happens, I might be calling Luke Fickell.
I like the sliding doors here.
That would be good.
That would be interesting. I would feel bad for Vanderbilt because, Mason's making bowl games. He's beaten Tennessee 3 out of 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Mason's doing a heck of a job, and if he got an offer from Colorado, it would definitely be an upgrade in certain areas like pay and resources and facilities. Mm-hmm. And I mean, for what Derek Mason is doing at Vanderbilt is nothing short of amazing. The fact that he's gotten them to bowl games, he's beaten Tennessee 3 years in a row. Tennessee quadruples the budget of Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt doesn't have a formal athletic department. The best thing Vanderbilt has is that indoor facility, and it's multi-use. So, it's not like they have their own like everyone else in the conference. And it's amazing what they do over there. You and I have been to a practice, Matt, and it's outstanding. just kind of the efficiency they use and the level of coaching that they're getting from Derek Mason. And the best thing that he did was turn the defensive play calling over. And so I would, if Colorado got him, that would be an upgrade because they've got some good facilities. They've got some good support. They get a guy like Mason in, that could blow the lid off that program. I think he would kill it there, just like he's doing it at Vanderbilt right now.
Absolutely. So let's continue on. UMass decided that Mark Whipple was too much of a masshole, and he was 65 and 70, 40 and 27, but it was not pretty near the end, Josh.
No, it wasn't. And Massachusetts is just a program that desperately needs a home. This independent thing, it's fine for a team like Liberty, which knows that it's heading to a conference, but didn't work in the MAC for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. And I just don't know how UMass can get into a conference. That they've been so bad for so long. It feels like they jumped to FBS without a real good plan. And
Josh, I got a conference for him.
Oh yeah,
Patriot League.
Nice. Yeah, I mean they might have to reconsider some things and maybe go the route of Idaho, but UMass and New Mexico State, I just don't know what the point is. Like, are they really making that much in TV revenue and stuff to stay up? It just seems like they're doing their own universities a disservice.
And as our New Englander here on the podcast, I can say for a fact that UMass football just doesn't move the needle. I mean, BC sucks up all of the limited amount of college football air that there is in the greatest 6 states in the nation. And outside of that, people care about the Patriots, and that's it. College football does not register like it does almost everywhere else in the country there. So, UMass is in a losing situation. We've seen UConn, do pretty much the same thing. They have a conference that they're in. I guess that would naturally make UMass someone that the Americans should be interested in, but on paper,
problem is
you want to bring in UMass to your conference. I mean, what does that do for you?
It does nothing, and the bigger problem is I don't see UMass hoops leaving the A-10.
No, they have no
Connecticut. Yeah, Connecticut basketball, fine. The American can suck it up, have a dreadful football program, if it means that they have a basketball team that's won some national titles. But they're not going to add UMass. And they're too far away, I think, for the Conference USA, which has mostly kind of a mid-Atlantic swing. There's just no conference over there. Maybe way, way, way back in the 80s, potentially the Big East, to get with Syracuse and Connecticut and stuff like that.
And if
but
that had happened in the 80s, they would have had the infrastructure by now to sustain something.
Yeah.
They came into FBS football at a time of great, reorganization, and they were without a plan, just sort of left, flapping on their own without a real strong conference tie to glom onto.
Yeah. No, they're a program that might not be in FBS for the long haul.
All right. Everett Withers withered in the San Marcos Heat for Texas State. He was summarily canned after going 7-28 and a lovely mark of 2-21 in conference. That is one of the toughest places in the country to win. I do not envy their situation. However, elsewhere in the state of Texas, the Red Raiders have parted ways with Coach GQ. They canceled their subscription after he went 35-40, but only 19-35 in conference. Coach, what are you hearing about Texas Tech, and who do you think they should be going for?
Well, what am I hearing is that, there's the only name I keep hearing is how they're not going to go after Dana Holgerson and Mike Leach.
Well, Mike Leach has already said he won't go.
Yeah, he shouldn't. It was funny how he said it too. Like, yeah, they still haven't paid me from the last time I was there, so why would I go back? But what am I hearing? Well, I'm not hearing a whole lot. They went after Brent Venables and got shot down. So here's what they need to do. They need to figure out privately their list. Get some guys that they know will be interested in the job, and then go after him. I think Seth Luttrell up at North Texas would be a good fit.
He was the first name that popped into my head.
I think Billy Napier over at which directional Louisiana is he at? Lafayette. I get the two mixed up all.
He's in Monroe.
He's in Monroe. Okay, yeah, Billy Napier from Monroe, I think would be a good fit. I think you should lick your wounds and say, GQ, come on back. We made a mistake. No, I'm just kidding. I think Blake Anderson would be a good fit there.
Yeah, Seth Luttrell is the name that really stuck out to me, Josh. Like Colorado in some ways, they've really churned out some coaches there at Texas Tech.
Yeah, they have. The thing that's interesting about the whole Coach GQ thing is he's been phenomenal offensively. And, we can talk about Patrick Mahomes. We could talk about some of the other players they put up. They had 5 wins. They're 5-2 this year. And then just injuries decimated them. I'm wondering if Coach GQ is the type of person that he'll go off, be a coordinator for a couple years, be really, really successful being a coordinator. And when he gets his next head coaching job, if he's not dominating and has learned from this experience and knows what he's going to do the next time around. And I'm just curious if Texas Tech might have pulled the parachute cord a season or two too early. We'll see.
I would not be surprised if that is what happened. So just leave it there with that.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that team on the offensive side of the ball, that's for sure.
No, there is not. All right, finally, Western Kentucky.
Hey, here's the name that popped up for Texas State. Kendall Briles.
Oh, I did read about that. I forgot.
He's a strong candidate. Just chew on that for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about Texas State is, they've been terrible in FBS, but this is a program that's above 500 for their program history. They've won multiple national titles in D2. They're a program that has had success in the past, and they're in the Sun Belt. They are in a state packed with recruits. I'm curious if this is a program that can get things turned around. They play in a nice stadium. San Marcos is on the right side of the state, and by the right side of the state, I mean it ain't near New Mexico or Oklahoma. It's in an area where they can get some recruits, just like North Texas with the Conference USA. There's no reason for Texas State not to compete every year for a Sun Belt title once they get the right coach.
All right. Well, finally, Western Kentucky got rid of Mike Sanford, basically because he's not Jeff Brom. And they hired, interesting choice, Tyson Helton. Josh, this was questionable?
I think his claim to fame is he's in a perfect position now to hire his brother Clay when Clay rightfully gets canned whenever Lynn Swann wakes up from the coma that he's in.
I think that is pretty accurate.
I feel like it was rushed because there was reports coming out that Tennessee wanted to get rid of him. And Western's like, I guess we'll take him. Sure. It's almost like Jeremy Pruitt called over there and said, listen, I'm going to get rid of this guy. Take him so that he doesn't have to get fired. Because they were going to fire him. No doubt. 100% they were going to fire him at Tennessee. And, well,
or maybe he got wind that they were going to fire him, and he accepted a pretty low offer from Western Kentucky. So he was able to get out of Dodge before he got fired.
Yeah. I'm talking more on Western Kentucky's end of, what the hell are you offering this guy? You could get – there's a lot of different coordinators out there that aren't on the chopping block, reports of them firing him before you make the offer. Unless this was done weeks ago, which Maybe. Is possible.
But I don't know why, if you're Western Kentucky, you would want to do that weeks ago.
Yeah, no.
So
it just makes no sense.
It really doesn't.
Also, a name also a few coordinator names to keep in mind, and a couple names to keep in mind. Does Lane Kiffin jump away from FAU? That's something to keep an eye on. Does Mel Tucker of Georgia finally get a call? Mike Norvell, does he get a chance? Does he get a shot? Does Derek Dooley get a shot at redemption? He's had a good year as a coordinator. Is this the year that Jim Leavitt gets a chance? Just thinking of a lot of these coordinators around the country. And is Tracy Claeys gonna get a shot again, or is he happy being a coordinator? Is Ryan Day from Ohio State going to get a shot at something? Is someone going to pry Paul Chryst away from Wisconsin? Are they going to? Is the NFL going to draft Alex Hornibrook?
Please, God, take him away.
I know you'd say that. So there's a lot of unknowns out there. There's a lot of interesting things happening, especially at the lower levels with all these G5 jobs open. So just some stuff to keep in mind. I was going to say a few other schools to keep an eye on here in the coming days. Maryland's got a big decision. Matt Canada. A lot of rumors about Bill Snyder retiring. We'll see if those come to fruition. Those are going to be interesting. Power 5 jobs.
Speaking of Bill Snyder, if he retires, Brett Bielema, I think, would naturally come up. But do you think I really think Bielema might actually be a decent fit at Colorado?
No, we'll see. I mean, Bielema's got to be on a short list. I mean, his track record at Wisconsin was phenomenal, and as much as we like to goof on him, this is a guy that seems like he runs a pretty clean program. Seems like he gets kids to graduate. Seems like he doesn't have a problem recruiting in tough places like Wisconsin is with their academics. So I think Bielema is going to be on a lot of short lists. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get interviewed quite a lot. I think North Carolina would have been a really good destination for him also. So we'll see how it shakes out.
Colorado or Texas Tech should put a call into Gus Malzahn saying, "Hey, we know things are kind of rough down there in Auburn. We tried once with the Auburn retread. Do you want to be attempt number 2?"
Yeah, look how that turned out for Tuberville.
I think another huge domino that could fall into place. I mean, look, he's denied it, but the last time the heat was on him at Florida because of a lot of player arrests, and there's a whole bunch of stink about how that Florida program was going, Urban Meyer conveniently had a health scare and retired. He was dragged through the mud this year for good reason.
Very good reason.
And I think he is one misstep away from Ohio State kicking him to the curb. And I was stunned Ohio State even brought him back, because this is a program that got rid of Jim O'Brien in hoops, for less. This is a program that got rid of Jim Tressel for less. It's a program that got rid of Woody Hayes, quite frankly, for less also. I know Woody Hayes punched a kid, but that was coaching. It was the heat of the moment. And it also was the 1960s or 70s. I think they could have spun it pretty easily, but Ohio State fired him like literally the second that game ended. And so
did they fire him as quickly as Arkansas fired Brett Bielema?
Maybe, but I mean, it's a program with a track record. As much as we like to hate on Ohio State, they are not afraid to dump coaches that do wrong. And I was stunned that they kept Urban Meyer. And I think a lot of fans were also. I know there were a lot of mouth breathers out there saying that Zach Smith was innocent until proven guilty, blah, 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 blah. But there were also a lot of fans going, what the hell are we doing as a program, keeping this guy? And we'll see if that's going to be a long-lasting marriage.
It doesn't feel like it's necessarily going to be. All right.
The last thing I wanted to say on this segment, I did want to pour one extra one out for my good friend David Beatty. In all seriousness, Kansas was screwed as a program because they ripped the Band-Aid off of Turner Gill really, really quickly, and they dumped Charlie Weiss really, really quickly. And coaches were thinking, why would I go to a school that only gives coaches 2.5 years to build a program? And they couldn't get anyone. And David Beatty was a recruiting coordinator, pretty much. Not really a guy that was going to be getting a Power 5 job anytime soon. David Beatty took a gamble on himself. It didn't work out. But Beatty was there for quite a while, longer than we expected him to be. He helped kind of turn that program in terms of people realizing, okay, the athletic department's not a joke in terms of football. It will actually give people a chance. It allowed a new athletic director, one who seems a little bit more competent in regards to the football side of things, to get in. I doubt Les Miles would have taken this job after Charlie Weiss in a similar situation. I think David Beatty did a lot of good for that program. It just didn't reflect on the record. And also, I think he has set himself up nicely for his next job in the loyalty he showed and the hard battling he showed on the sideline, in that Texas has already asked him to help them prepare for Oklahoma. So, yeah. I mean, we could see him getting a job with his good friend down there at Texas very next football season. So, David Beatty's going to have a bad record, and if he never gets a head coaching job again, he's going to have one of the worst all-time records in college football. But dude made a lot of money. Dude helped Kansas. No one's going to respect that. And dude also beat Texas in probably the greatest moment of the Illegal Motion College Football podcast.
Amen. All right. Well, before we get to our pop quiz, which is back by popular demand, literally popular demand, I was texted about this, not by Aunt Sally, but by my Aunt Peggy from New Orleans. She wanted to know where the pop quiz was. She was very upset there was no pop quiz in the last show.
We should have had a pop quiz about seeing how many of the playoff teams Coach and I could have named.
Ooh, that would have been fun. Well,
we missed an opportunity.
All right. Well, anyway, let's get to our spread formations recap really quickly. I went from 6-0 in week 12 to a dismal 2-4 in week 13. Coach and Josh, you guys are both 3-3. All of us had Memphis covering the 7 points against Houston, as well as Rutgers covering the spread against Michigan State. Coach was the only one who had Nebraska covering against Iowa. Josh, the only one who had Wisconsin covering against Minnesota. And we were all on the wrong side of Texas, Kansas, and Syracuse, BC. But with that, time for the pop quiz.
Look, Iowa should have covered that spread. Talk about a questionable coaching decision. Just real quick, Coach. Mm-hmm. You're up 15. Okay?
Up 15.
Two possession game in the third quarter. Chip shot, field goal. The driving rain, which was in the forecast, finally started a few plays earlier. Mm-hmm. And Iowa does a fake field goal rather than go up 3 possessions and gave Nebraska hope. What in the hell is that call?
Yeah, get the points, put it out of reach, and move on. That's my
Hawks should have covered. They would have covered with that.
They should have covered, but they did not. Ergo, we are on the wrong side.
Ferentz.
Oh, well. Pop quiz time. Take out your number 2 pencils. Get your blue books ready. Wisconsin and Minnesota played for the 128th time this past weekend. That is an FBS record. However, there are 28 other schools, or I should say pairs of schools, that have played at least 110 times. So you guys need to name those other 28 schools. And for a bonus point, you can give me the name of the rivalry or the trophy that the teams play for. Josh, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I'm going to go with the Army-Navy game, which is an all-time classic, and I think it might just be called the Army-Navy game. If you need the trophy, it also factors in the Commander-in-Chief trophy.
Yeah, it's just called the Army-Navy game. That is correct. They have played 118 times. Coach.
The Deep South's oldest rivalry. Georgia versus Auburn.
That is correct. They have played 122 times.
Oh, yeah, Georgia versus Auburn. Yeah, I knew that one, you guys. Well, I'm going to go with Floyd of Rosedale, and obviously we all know what that is. Coach doesn't need to be filled in on that one because we're all football experts.
All right, that's correct. 111 times between Iowa and Minnesota. Coach.
All right. I'm going to say the Iron Bowl.
The Iron Bowl.
Didn't that have like 50 years off?
They didn't have 50 years off. I think they took a decade off, but I don't think it.
Iron Bowl has been played less than 100 times, so that is your first strike.
I don't think it took a break from like 1907 to like 1958.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Josh.
So I thought there was an article that I saw recently about that. Okay, so I am going to go with another Big Ten rivalry. We're one of the oldest conferences, so we got a lot of them. And it's the one that determined a bowl game this year, the Old Oaken Bucket, Purdue and Indiana.
That is correct. 121 times for the two teams of the Hoosier State. Coach.
Oh, is it my turn?
That it is.
All right. I'm going to say the game that we just played, the Clean Old Fashioned Hate.
That is correct. 114 meetings between Georgia and Georgia Tech.
Sweet.
Joshua Isaiah.
Well, like I mentioned, the Big Ten has a lot of these, and the game, Michigan and Ohio State.
Meat, Chicken, and Ohio State has also been played 114 times. Coach.
Rutgers versus Kansas? No. Sorry, I had to.
Only in our dreams. Can we just have that game every week? Can they both just go non-conference and play and just have those two teams play each other? Maybe we could throw Oregon State into the mix.
They would inexplicably still find a way to go 0-10.
Oregon State's so bad. I can't stop thinking about that. I'm done. The Red River Shootout.
Red River Shootout between Texas and Oklahoma. That has been played 112 times. Also known as the game for the Golden Hat.
Nice.
Josh.
Well, just a side note, I double-checked it because I was curious. For our listeners in Alabama, 1907, there was a tie game, 6-6. And for whatever reason, maybe the game was so violent or whatever, they did not play again until 1948. That's why the Iron Bowl is short on games compared to some of these rivalries. So they had a 41-year absence. But anyway, like I said, Matt, when you posed this question, I jotted down a whole bunch of Big Ten rivalries because Illinois and Northwestern, the land of Lincoln Trophy, formerly the Sweet Sioux Tomahawk, it's been played a bunch of times, at least 110, I believe. It's got to be up there.
Barely makes the cut, 111.
Nice.
Which one did you just say?
Land of Lincoln Trophy.
Ooh. All right, this one, I'm taking a shot in the dark here, but this one I feel like has been around for a long, long time. It currently involves a pirate and a Scientologist, but it is the Apple Cup.
Oh, Coach, this is why we love you. That is correct. 111 meetings between those two schools. Josh.
All right, the final Big Ten one that I'm pretty sure of, because this will exhaust the original founders and liking to play each other annually. They were not an original founding member, but they were a non-conference team for a whole lot of years before joining the league, and that's Michigan and Michigan State.
Michigan State is.
Oh, they played for that ugly ugly-ass Paul Bunyan trophy.
The ugly Paul ass Bunyan trophy is correct. Yeah. Exactly 110 meetings between those schools.
It's like a big, wooden garbage piece.
Coach.
God. You got to be kidding me. I feel like because they have a trophy that has been played for a long time, the Battle of the Whiskey Barrel, Kentucky and Tennessee.
Ooh.
Probably wrong, but yeah.
The Battle for the Barrel is correct. 113 meetings between those two schools.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I always forget if this is the Keg of Nails game or not, but I know that Miami of Ohio and Cincinnati have played each other just a boatload of times. This one might be around 125. It's been played a ton.
Yeah, it's not the Kick and Nails. It's the Victory Bell, but it's been played 123 times, second only to Wisconsin, Minnesota.
What is the Keg of Nails, or does that give away another game?
That does not give away another game. That is the rivalry between Cincinnati and Louisville.
Oh, I knew one of the teams was right. I knew Cincinnati played.
They've only met 53 times, though.
Okay.
And they still don't know each other.
Coach.
The battle for the boot. LSU and whoever that other team they play is.
The battle for the boot. I'm sorry, Coach. If you don't give me the second team, I can't give you the.
I'll give you it. It's burying the lead if I do.
Well, no, then you are incorrect, sir. That is strike two for you. There are LSU is involved in two of these, but neither of them involve.
I know the other one.
I
know the other
one. Josh.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with now just teams that have been in the same conference for a trillion years. Believe it or not, they're no longer in the same conference, but they were together way back in the old SWAC. They were SWC, not the modern day SWAC. They were together in the Big 12 for a long time. They were probably in the Texas State Conference as well, but A&M and the Longhorns, they hate each other, and they've played a whole lot.
That's correct. They've met 118 times. You know the name of the game. They don't have a trophy, but you know what the game is called.
The Tumbleweed Classic.
Close enough. The Lone Star Showdown. Coach.
Okay. I'm going to say the other game that LSU's involved with in a rivalry is the battle for the Magnolia Battle. It's the Magnolia Trophy. It's with Ole Miss.
That is correct. Sorry, that is incorrect. They've met 106 times in the Magnolia Bowl.
Oh my God. Sure.
So, Coach, I'm sorry you have struck out. Josh wins 14 to 10.
I think I was at an advantage in that the Big Ten and the Midwest has a bunch of these old bowl games.
That is true. They do.
There's a lot of Southeastern Conference shuffling.
Anyone else you had off the top of your head, Josh?
Well, two teams that were together in the Big 8, the Big 12, the Missouri Valley, I believe, for a while. No longer together, but they spent the vast majority of their time together. The border war, Kansas and Missouri, was on mine.
That is only been played 104 times.
Are you sure about that?
100%. Oh, sorry. What did you say? Kansas and Missouri?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading Nebraska and Missouri. Border war 120 times.
Yeah. No, I was going to say Nebraska
I'm
and
sorry.
Missouri.
I thought you said Nebraska. I thought you said Nebraska, Missouri.
No, although that was on my notes. I'll just cross that off now. Thanks for that. That's a freebie. But they were on my list. Another team that's been in the same conference for a really, really, really long time that I was thinking about was the Sunflower Cup, Sunflower something, Kansas State. And then I had pretty much exhausted the Midwestern rivalries that
Kansas State, the Sunflower Showdown, 115 times.
Yeah. Again, this was just a geographic advantage because the Big Ten hasn't had as much shuffling as the SEC. And then the Big 12 teams that I just mentioned, they've been together for years and years and years and years. Coach, you did awesome, but I just had the benefit of geography in this one.
All right. Well, the ones that you guys missed, the South's oldest rivalry, not the Deep South's oldest rivalry, just the South's oldest rivalry, North Carolina, Virginia, 122 times.
I feel like Virginia and Virginia Tech care more about each other now. I feel like North Carolina and NC State might care about each other more now.
Probably. Well, elsewhere, Civil War has also been played 122 times between the two schools in Oregon. The Big Game, a.k.a. Stanford Cal, also at 120.
Nice.
Kansas, Nebraska, 117. Clemson, South Carolina for the Palmetto Bowl, 115 times.
What's the textile game? Isn't that got Clemson involved in it?
Clemson, Wake Forest.
The Textile Bowl?
Yeah.
That's Clemson, NC State.
Oh, see, yeah. This is what happens when you spend a lot of your high school and college years playing EA Sports, NCAA football.
Rest in peace. Elsewhere,
they got me roster updates, by the way.
We've got the Egg Bowl at 115. The Revivalry, aka TCU versus Baylor. They've played.
But only about 6 of those Egg Bowls have been at all interesting.
Touche.
I struck out on LSU because the Egg Bowl is next on my list. And the Sunflower Showdown was next on my list. I had those two ready to go. I was like, well, let me just go ahead and knock out LSU's 2 games, and then I'll – yeah.
I'm sorry, Coach. It happens.
I misplayed that one.
Yeah, Utah State, a.k.a. the Beehive Boot, that's played 112 times. Bedlam has been 112 as well.
What's the splits on that? About 90 to 20
on Bedlam. 86 to 18. 86, 18, and 7.
Nice.
Oklahoma State, right?
Obviously.
Yep. No, that's the wrestling series.
Tennessee Vanderbilt 111 times.
Was that one 85 to 20?
75, 31, and 5. NC State and Wake Forest. LSU, Mississippi State. Washington, Oregon, the Emerald City Showdown. The Battle of the Brazos. that does it for 110. Does anyone know what the Battle of the Brazos is, though? That is the closest contender.
Battle for the Brazos?
That is correct.
Maybe a couple Texas teams. Well, it's not the Frying Pan. So that's TCU-SMU. I don't know. Is it going to be two random ass teams? Is it going to be like Rice and UTEP?
Rice and Houston.
Baylor and Texas.
No, Rice and Houston. Rice and Houston is the Bayou Trophy or something, I think. Houston is in the Bayou game. I'm going to Google it real quick.
Okay. Well, that is it for the pop quiz. A+ for Josh, A for Corey.
Yes.
And with
The
that,
Bayou Bucket Classic is Houston and Rice. Oh, my goodness.
the Bayou, not the Bayou, but the Bayou.
I pronounce it Bayou.
I've heard it both ways.
I only say it Bayou when it's involving LSU.
Well, speaking of the Bayou and Coach O, he was soaked in Gatorade for about 2.5 hours while still on the field.
That's a shame.
That absolute ridiculous game that started, I think, on Saturday and just ended about 20 minutes ago. 7 overtimes, 74-72, the highest scoring game in the history of FBS college football. Texas A&M comes out on top over the Bayou Bengals. And, Coach, this is where I would usually ask you
SEC defense.
Why one team succeeded over the other. But, I mean, at 7 overtimes, it's just a complete crapshoot. So I just want to know how you felt while you were watching this, because you and I were texting.
Yeah, I was like, somebody just give up. I was like, somebody just blow coverage here and give up a 2-point conversion. It got to the point where as soon as like the other team got the ball, I texted you, was like, do you think they can stop them on this 2-point conversion? You said nope. I go, yeah, okay, let's go. We're going to 8 overtimes now. But it was unreal. Like they just kept making play after that first overtime. The first overtime was like defensive stand, and then all of a sudden they got tired. And you could see them just fall off a cliff. They got tired, and they just started launching deep balls, trying to win a game on one throw every time. But Kendrick Rogers,
oh man,
wow, that catch he had,
that kid can ball.
That catch he had was unbelievable. Guy was pulling him down, and he just kind of tips it to himself with one hand the whole way down. It was, oh my God, it was outstanding. But it was fun. I was able to get 2 hours worth of game and not see a single minute of regulation.
Josh, did you enjoy this one as Coach and I did?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what I found really humorous about it is it was tied 31-31 going into overtime.
Which, by the way, this is after that crazy replay where they thought it was an interception to seal the game, but Kellen Mond's knee was down.
Yeah. But what was really interesting was from regulation, it was all either scores or 3 and out. So they didn't, despite scoring 31 points each, they actually did not put up a whole ton of yards. And then because overtime is from the 25, I think it's really funny that they scored 74 and 72 points, and yet LSU had under 500 yards and A&M only had 521.
Yeah, that was kind of absurd. Also, the strangest thing for me, Coach, was that Joe Burrow seemed to be the LSU's best running back. Or not.
I just delivered the greatest answer ever, but nobody heard it. It's kind of like
when you were muted.
Forrest. Yeah, I was muted. No, he really was. I was like, where's LSU's running back? What the heck? Who's Joe Burrow? When did he turn into Michael Vick? What the heck is going on here?
That was that was strange, to say the least.
I'm like, Ed Orgeron's wringing out a shirt from Gatorade from 2 hours ago. Joe Burrow is the best running back on LSU's team. Kendrick Rogers is catching with his face mask. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, there's staffers fighting. They're boxing over here. It's like, what the heck is going on? I told my wife I was coming to bed an hour and a half ago, and I'm still up.
I said the same thing. I'm like, my wife asked me, like, what are you? I'm like, oh, I'm just, the game just went to overtime. I'll be up, I'll be up pretty soon. 2 hours later, I'm still there on the couch.
Yeah, I'm like, and usually, like, I'm like, yeah, I'll wait it out, and then after the first overtime, I'm passed out on the couch and waking up, and like I can't walk because I slept on my leg funny on the couch in the ottoman. But this one, I was like glued.
I was on the edge of my seat the entire time.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh man, and it was just like big play after big play after big play after big play. I'm like, what the? Like, okay, stop them on this 2-point conversion.
Nope.
All right, convert this 2-point conversion. Nope. What the heck? I loved it. Most entertaining game ever that I've watched. It's probably the greatest game that I didn't watch a single minute of regulation. I was being truthful when I said that. I didn't watch a single minute of regulation.
I didn't turn on, Coach, until you texted me.
Yeah.
Because I was actually watching the Notre Dame USC game, which ended up kind of being a snoozer.
Yeah.
But another game that ended up being a bit of a snoozer was the game. Another loss for Michigan against their blood rival, Josh. Buckeyes put up 63 against the Michigan defense that, most people thought was one of, if not the best in the country.
62, Matt, not
Okay.
63.
I'm sorry.
They had some field goals.
Well, that takes
this
way down.
This was the most points ever allowed by Harbaugh. This was I believe the most points allowed by Michigan in football.
I think it was Michigan in this rivalry. I don't know if it was ever. Yeah.
Yeah, but just an epic collapse. And, Don Brown's defense is hyper aggressive. He loads up the guys, his linebackers, right up on the line of scrimmage. And there's some passing routes that leaves him vulnerable to. And it's tight ends down the seam, a.k.a. what Iowa did to upset Michigan, and crossing patterns, a.k.a. what Ohio State did all day. And Haskins, 396 yards passing, 20 of 31, 6 touchdowns. A ton of his were just short crossing routes that a guy like Paris Campbell just takes and runs and runs and runs with. And Don Brown's great coordinator, Michigan great defense. They don't play a type of defense that's going to be successful against what Ohio State likes to do. So Michigan kind of solved the Trace McSorley Rubik Cube this year. That's their job for next year. But the fact of the matter is,
it better be, or they're all going to be they're going to have a different coaching staff.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, Harbaugh is just this is him. This is the new normal with him. I think it's safe to say, based on Stanford's success, that David Shaw was the brains of that operation. Pep Hamilton, he has been much maligned for years now by Big Ten people, diehard Michigan fans, things like that. I mean, his offense he runs painfully vanilla, and it gets more and more conservative the higher the stakes of the game are. And to only get, what they did out of their offense. Now, 39 points looks good. The final stats looks good. But they got some garbage scores once the game was already out of hand. For instance, in the fourth quarter, putting up 20 points.
Yeah, they had like one instance when it felt like they could make a game of it, and that was right at the end of the second quarter after Ohio State fumbled the kickoff. They got a quick score, and it was under a one-score game. But man, Coach, Ohio State just keeps bringing 4- and 5-star kids out of the woodwork. This time it was Josh Olave, I think, basically accounted for 3 touchdowns on his own.
Yeah, it was unreal. Just
And this kid barely played the entire year.
Yeah, and here he comes. I saw Tate Martell at one point.
Well, that's how you know the game was out of hand.
Yeah, your favorite quarterback. It's unreal. Obviously, we know how well Ohio State recruits, and it shows. And it shows in this games like this where just depth just really took over. Overall team speed. You have elite athletes on the field like Paris Campbell. They're going to bite you in the rear end, And Harbaugh he seemed shell shocked, like deer in the headlights type look, like he wasn't ready for the big time. Even though he's been in the big time, he's played in the NFL, coached in the Super Bowl. Obviously he gets credit for rebuilding Stanford, even though we know Shaw was mostly behind that, he still was the leader of that pack. So he shouldn't be as lost as he seems to be in these matchups against Ohio State. It's like, you coached against Ray Lewis in the Super Bowl, and you should have won. And you didn't look rattled there, but you just put a little Buckeye jersey on the opponent, and all of a sudden it's like he's never coached before. And it's like the team, it's just like one of those things where, the saying, like, this team thinks they can just walk out, lay their jersey on the 50-yard line and win. This was probably actually true. Ohio State just walked out, warmed up, and they won.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Michigan was so psyched up, so amped up about being reading things, all of that. I think. I'm sorry if my mic has been cutting in and out, but I think that they've been reading their own press clippings, doing that stuff, that they lost sight of the opponent in front of them. People have been talking down Ohio State, been talking up Michigan. They thought they could waltz right in there, win this game, and as soon as Ohio State came out there, they're like, and then they punched him in the mouth. They're like, wait a second. Yeah, we're not going to win this game. And it's almost like they were just timid the whole time. They were tight, timid, scared to make a mistake, all that good stuff. They didn't let loose. Ohio State let loose. Ohio State played like they were 0-11 and had nothing to lose.
Yeah, and that's why they ended up winning that one. I feel like you could kind of say the same thing about the Apple Cup, Josh.
Well, I just wanted to say there's an interesting thing. The Detroit Free Press was calling Jim Harbaugh the Michigan version of John Cooper, which look, you can see the comparisons. John Cooper famously went 3-8 in bowl games, 2-10-1 against Michigan. Harbaugh already 2 bowl losses, already now 0-4 against Ohio State. So you can see some of the comparisons to that. I just wanted to kind of push back a tad on that, in that John Cooper, Hall of Fame coach, dude is amazing outside of some hiccups with Michigan. He won 5 conference titles with Tulsa. He won a Pac-10 title with Arizona State and won a Rose Bowl, finished top 5 in the polls that year, won 3 conference titles with Ohio State, won a Rose Bowl there, had a whole bunch of top 10 finishes with the Buckeyes. Harbaugh wishes he was Michigan's John Cooper, because John Cooper's done way more than Harbaugh has done so far in Michigan. But, yeah, you mentioned the Apple Cup, and I think this one honestly came down to the weather, and we love the Pirates offense. We love the Pirates swagger. We love that the Pirate added defense this year. The problem is the Pirate can go on and on and on about how he doesn't need balance and he does not give 2 hoots about balance. I think being able to run the ball in a snowstorm when you're playing at Washington State would probably be a smart thing to have in your arsenal. I'm not saying he needs to go to that club every time he's golfing, but, like, it's sometimes nice to have a sand wedge. And
you hope that you don't have to use it, but you have it in case you need to.
Yeah, dude needs to have a sand wedge. You play in a state that gets some pretty inclement weather, in a conference with no domes. Your biggest rival right at the end of the year is either going to be in an outdoor stadium in Seattle or an outdoor stadium in Pullman, Washington. I'm sure this is not the first time the Apple Cup has had snow. And yet Washington State looked like they had never been aware that snow can happen in their state.
I watched it, and it was they just kept fumbling and bumbling and rumbling, bumbling, stumbling all over themselves, and they just couldn't get anything right. They couldn't get a snap down. They couldn't, they couldn't even. They even have like token success, like with their 5-6 carries that their running back gets. Borghe's I think Borghe's a good running back, and if they involved him more in the run game, I think they'd be a little bit more successful. But they couldn't get him going. They couldn't throw the ball. Minshew couldn't grip the ball. O-line couldn't block. And in those type conditions, it's actually really hard to get a pass rush because nobody can get their footing up front. The offensive lineman and the defensive lineman, none of them get their footing. So your pass rush should almost be non-existent. But that wasn't the case.
Well, and it wasn't Washington was able to pass the ball too.
Washington, it seemed like Washington had the home field advantage.
It really did. And also kudos to Myles Gaskin, a guy that's battled some injuries in his career. 4th consecutive 1,000-yard season. That is a rare feat. So kudos to him on achieving that. We need to move on to the Big 12. Oklahoma ends up winning a shootout in West Virginia. Josh, it just kind of felt in this game like the last team to have the ball was going to win.
Yeah, and I think that just has a lot to do with West Virginia came into the season with a little bit of a thin defense that then, if I'm not mistaken, had some disciplinary stuff. Didn't they kick a player or two off that defense way back, like when we were doing our summer shows? So kind of a thin defense got a little thinner, and then obviously over the season you're going to have some attrition with injuries, et cetera, et cetera. And West Virginia did a hell of a job of masking some of those defensive issues and winning a whole bunch of games, most notably using that 2-point conversion to stun Texas. But it just caught up to them a week ago in Stillwater, tough place to win. Cornelius went off. And then, my God, Oklahoma, they could find a way to score 50-plus points against a whole lot of teams, let alone a West Virginia team that came in with some of the defensive issues they had. So just tough loss for West Virginia to take. It feels like this program is so close to getting over the hump, and yet something just bites them. And I don't know if it's Dana Holgorsen, just one of those coaches that isn't going to get you over the hump, or if, defense just is never going to happen. And this is what they're going to be. They're going to be the Pirate East, but just something's not right there with West Virginia. And I don't see how they break this Oklahoma and now emerging Texas dual monarchy in the Big 12 anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm really concerned because Will Grier is moving on to the league next year, and whoever comes in, unless they get Jake Fromm as a graduate transfer, which that's not going to happen. I'm not saying Jake Fromm's going to transfer, or if they get Tua Tagovailoa as a grad transfer for whatever reason. Whoever's your quarterback is going to be a significant downgrade from what Will Grier was able to give you offensively. So automatically, your production is going to go way down on that side of the ball. You already have a thin defense. They're going to be back to the middle lower of the pack because they don't have the talent sustainable to compete week in and week out in that conference when you have an emerging Texas and an already the king of the conference, which is Oklahoma. You have a good, tough, physical team that has just enough depth in TCU, and then you have some other teams that have a lot of good, fast track quality talent like your Baylor's, your Texas Techs, and that's where kind of West Virginia fits in that mold. And every once in a while, one of those teams will jump out and they'll build just enough talent, and they'll get the right pieces together, and they'll jump out and they'll make a quick run, and then they'll jump right back to the middle of the pack. And that's what West Virginia is going to be, unless they figure out how to sign some elite defensive recruits, find you a great defensive coordinator like the Pirate did. Albeit he had a rough game in the Apple Cup, but I think Tracy Claeys has been, a Broyle. He's been well deserving of his Broyles finalist, and so that's the kind of the recipe. They need to focus on the defensive side of the ball. They need to focus on special teams. They need to focus on finding that edge that will help them get into that upper echelon and stay in that upper echelon of the conference. This season, they are in the upper echelon of the Big 12. I think they're one of the premier Big 12 teams this year, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah, they're the third best Big 12 team this year.
Yeah, they have to recruit. They have to get some stuff going on the defense side of the ball, or they're going to be bottom 3 next year. They're going to be relegated.
Yeah, they might be. Well, finally, out in the Mountain West.
You have them top 3 of them ahead of Iowa State, Matt?
I mean, I'm a little biased when it comes to Iowa State. I'm going to love what Matt Campbell does, but
Iowa State's number 1 in my heart. But
Iowa State beat West Virginia 30-14.
That's true.
So if head-to-head games matter.
Okay. Well, I was just saying that as more of a national perception, I would at this point.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Finally, out in the Mountain West,
national perception at number 2.
Utah State ends their season with a disappointing loss on the Smurf turf. Not only was that their first conference loss, but also meant that they are not even going to be headed to the Mountain West championship game. That will be Boise State, the winner of this game. They will get to play Fresno State next week in the Mountain West title game. But Josh, how is Boise State finally able to stop Utah State's offense?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think part of it was Utah State sometimes stopping themselves. They had a tough day running the ball. Darwin Thompson, good running back. He was held in check. He needed 11 carries to get just 61 yards. No rushing touchdowns. So they made Utah State pretty one-dimensional. And then they just played some good fundamental defense on Love, the really good quarterback for Utah State. I know he ended with 363 yards. I know he had 3 touchdowns, and that looks good, but 29 of 47, that's almost 20 balls hitting the dirt. That's not very efficient. And that's what Boise State did. I think Utah State also played scared a little bit. Yeah, I mean, there was at one point it was a 10-7 lead for Boise State. Sure, Utah State wasn't playing it, wasn't finding things as easily as they had, but they were right there in the game. It was 10-7, and they ran a fake punt on 4th and 1 from their own 34. It didn't work. And a few plays later, Boise State scores a touchdown. They go up 17-7. I know Utah State got that score back, and it was 17-14. And, I know Utah State had some chances, but I think if you punt it away there, you show confidence in your defense, you take those 7 points off the board, maybe the game is a little different. Maybe you don't give Boise State that early spark when Boise was also struggling. Utah State also missed a field goal. So, I mean, it was a game where I thought Matt Wells got a little out of his comfort zone, and it felt like Boise State was dictating the game, and Utah State was reacting more so than Utah State going out, playing their game, making Boise State react to them.
Yeah. Coach, any thoughts on this one?
I think Josh hit the nail on the head, but the word that keeps circling back in my mind when I think about Utah State in this game was consistency, and consistency on the road all season. They've just been kind of up and down, and it finally, it's one of those things that you're up and down enough, it's going to catch up with you, and it's going to rear its ugly head in the worst moment. And in this game, that's what happened. They just couldn't find the right plays at the right times. Boise State played a good bend don't break type defense. They let Utah State have some of the big plays that they knew they were going to get. They didn't panic, and they got stops when they needed it. And then Boise State and Brett Rippon just took it from there, and he passed. Kudos to him passing Aaron Murray and who's the other guy? He passed Colt McCoy, that guy.
The starting quarterback for the Washington professional football team.
That's right. Him. He passed those two for the Division I career passing yardage. He sits 15th overall now in career passing yardage. So big day for Brett Rippon. This is kind of the experience that Boise State has in these situations. They've been there before. Utah State hadn't really been there a whole lot. I sound like a broken record sometimes when I talk about big game experience and conference championship type stretch run experience. This is important. In games like this, good tight games like this, when the talent is equal, you have the experience. You know what to do. You don't panic. Utah State panics. And that's what bit him in the back. That's what bit him in the butt.
Yeah, I think that is pretty much exactly what happened there, Coach. And with that, Josh, any final words?
Yeah, we're bearing the lead. One of the teams we love here, Arkansas. They came in to their season finale. They really, really needed to find a way to upset Missouri to have a slim hope of making a bowl game. It would have gotten them to 3-9, 1-7 on the year. Came up a little short to the Tigers. They played a great first quarter. They're only down 7-0. But that second quarter got away from them, unfortunately. And I think the turning point was the two-play negative 25-yard drive by Arkansas that resulted in a fumble in the end zone that put Missouri up 21-0. They never looked back. They ended up winning the game 38-0. And it's just a shame because I think that Arkansas is probably one of the best coached teams in the SEC and certainly one of the most talented. They just had a lot of hard luck losses this year, Coach. A lot of moral victories. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking a little bit better football luck next year. You're probably winning 10, 11, 12 games, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're winning 15 games next year.
Yeah. I think outside of Saban, the second best coaching we saw happened right there in Fayetteville.
Mm-hmm.
Well, folks, there you had it. You heard it here first. The Hogs are going 15-0 next year. Coach, any final words from you?
Yeah, I'm reading a tweet here by SB Nation College Football Twitter account. They're saying Bama's Mike Locksley could leave for Maryland, and they threw out the possibility of hiring Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator.
Oh, that would just be unfair.
It really would be.
So Maryland message boards love Mike Locksley because he was there for some of Friedgen's time and was a really, really good recruiter. I think part of the dumbness of this is they're overlooking the fact that when he was there as an interim coach, he went 1-5. And when he had his one other head coaching experience at New Mexico, he went 2-26. Why would you hire him? Why?
Because he's likable.
It would be like hiring, sorry to my good friend David Beatty, but it'd be like hiring David Beatty.
You just spent half of this show saying that David Beatty's a good coach.
No, I said he did good work at Kansas.
That would be like Auburn hiring somebody that was 3-19. Oh, wait, they already did that. They hired Gene Chizik.
And he won them a national title.
And he won him a national title. So you know what, Maryland? Hire Mike Loxley. He'll win you national title.
Go for it. Why not?
Do it.
Yeah, Matt, I said he did good work. I never said he was a good coach. There's a difference.
He's a good coach, just not a Power 5 coach.
Guys, also, I don't know if you know this. I actually have, and finally today, Doug Flutie has a new football game coming out, a sports video game called Maximum Football.
All right.
I just hope he brings back his cereal, Flutie Flakes.
I actually have a box of Flutie Flakes in my childhood bedroom.
Nice.
But
what do they taste like?
They taste like knockoff Frosted Flakes.
Nice.
Nah, I don't know a better way to describe it. Like a more saccharine Frosted Flake. I feel like they should have been smaller though than normal Frosted Flakes. That would have been. I think that would have been a good way to go. But obviously, the branding and marketing was not in place for that in 1998.
It's too bad that he and Warren Moon never collaborated for a cereal called like Canada O's. That would have been great.
Well, speaking of the CFL, one of the great things about Maximum Football is that you can set the field for either NFL, CFL, or NCAA dimensions.
Ooh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Speaking about the CFL, we should probably acknowledge that the Grey Cup occurred over the weekend.
Do tell.
And the Calgary Stampeders, they were favored. They got the win, 27-16, over the Ottawa Red Blacks. So there you go. Well done.
Did you just say Ottawa Rednecks?
No, Ottawa Red Blacks. REDBLACKS.
I thought you said Rednecks. So I don't think they have rednecks north of the border, but hey, you never know.
That would be great. But no, it was the Calgary Stampeders that won the Grey Cup. It's their first title since 2014. It's their 8th overall, and that is some Canadian football.
That is the CFL Minute. Mm-hmm. With that, we are going to sign off for the day. So on behalf of our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton, here in Nashville, Tennessee, and our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook, up there in Chicago, Illinois, this is the professor in the Music City saying so long and see you next time on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. To get in touch with the show, email us at illegalmotionpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at illegal_motion.